Welcome, Stacey. Thanks so much for coming. I was wondering if you could explain a little bit about Golden Bear Insurance.
Golden Bear Insurance Company is the first insurer in the state of California and in the nation to be admitted as a insurer for cannabis operations, whether they're in cultivation or manufacturing or dispensaries or testing labs. We have a product that has been vetted by the Department of Insurance to cover these operations.
And so I gather you've been quite integral in setting this all up for Golden Bear.
You bet. My role has been to look at what the industry has had in the past through the surplus lines market, and then to craft a product for them that gives them coverage like any other business. So that was important to us, that we've got a regulatory scheme here in California that's trying to legitimize this industry, and we need to make sure that they have the coverages that they need so that the risk can be transferred onto us, and then they can better capitalize their businesses and grow them.
And what are the few examples of the risks that a cannabis grower or seller or buyer or whatever would face?
Right. Well, that's kind of been the interesting piece about all this, because because this industry has been in the dark. Even when insureds in the past cannabis operations have had claims, they've been reluctant to report them. So in terms of a risk trend where we're really looking at what kind of claims are going to come in the door, there's not a lot of information there. And so we extrapolate from businesses that are like cannabis to anticipate what kind of risks they might face. So liquor liability, the service of liquor. Here in California, it's what we call a social responsibility state, so that there is protections in the civil code that say that server of alcohol can't be held liable unless you're serving to a minor, for example. Now, those same kind of laws do not exist with respect to the consumption of marijuana. So we can say probably that if someone consumes marijuana and drives impaired, there may be exposure to the business somehow, some way, or someone could bring a lawsuit saying you gave me something that made me more impaired than I anticipated. So we think about the product liability risks may be greater than liquor, but not greater than, and that's in California, not necessarily in other states. So in other states, they don't have that same kind of social responsibility rule, and so it would be the same kind of risk that you'd see in Colorado, for example. So we have experience with selling, insuring bars and restaurants. We think that insuring cannabis operations will be very much like that. We have experience with commercial property. So same thing. We're just looking at their stock a little bit different, trying to get an appropriate valuation on if there's a fire, for example, how are we going to cover the plants? And so we've spent a lot of time researching just the nuances of the industry to really make sure that we were giving insureds what they deserved.
All that research would make you a mine of information, and I'm sure we could talk for hours. What's your vision of the future now with all that research that you've done as far as the marijuana cannabis industry goes?
My sense is that we won't be having these conversations in the future. This is going to be business as usual. I just think that there is such a tremendous momentum nationwide to legalize cannabis that this industry is going to quickly normalize. So I don't see people having interviews about what's happening in the liquor business now, and I think that's what's going to happen down the road. I really think it's going to normalize. I'm not quite ready to say that you're going to be able to buy cannabis at a CVS, but
Who knows, though?
but who knows? Who knows?
Because I've been watching some documentaries recently, and really, a lot of these psychedelic drugs that we all tried when we were in our teens, many years ago, are basically used by shamans in ancient cultures. So for centuries, like nothing really new there. So it seems understandable that this would become legal if they've been using it for healing for so many cultures and for so many centuries.
Right. It really is fascinating. There's stigma that is attached to cannabis, and I don't know if it is rightfully placed, especially when you consider other drugs and the problems that we have there. For example, I think it was
The opioids.
the opioids. In fact, I want to say it was yesterday or the day before, LA has sued Big Pharma in Groves, trying to sue them for their role in putting opiates on the market, and I'm fascinated by that. They're even making RICO violation charges, and I just think that's really interesting. There are so many deaths from opioids. I want to say that the number was 64,000 annually,
I've been in shivers just talking
and we
about
don't
it.
have that
Terrifying.
with marijuana. So
Yeah.
why the disparate treatment between
Yes.
these two drugs? So I just think it's interesting. You kind of have to ask yourself why we can't get this moving at a federal level. Who profits by marijuana remaining in the dark? So I asked that question. I don't know.
Good questions. I'm so looking forward to this panel. This is like so interesting just talking to you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Stacey.
you. Happy to be here. Thank you.